Jan and Cheryl and the Butterfly Group, we're happy to host you. If you choose to come out, just let us know. Amazing shout out to the work that they've done. So take it away, Linda and Emily.
All right, I'm going to talk. And when I start talking about items that are in this artifacts room, Emily will do the moving around and the showing, because she's really the techie person. Her father, who is the tech person for a major hospital in Chattanooga, said I shouldn't be allowed to have an electronic device. And that's probably true. So I just like to start by telling you a little bit about why we started and how we started. As you said, Whitwell is a very small community. The last census pegged us at 1,729 people. I'm thinking it probably won't change much in this census. I'd say 92% of our people are white, Protestant, evangelical Protestant. Within a mile of this school, there are 12 churches. So that sort of could give you some idea about how evangelical we are here. As I became principal of Whitwell Middle School and just started looking around and thinking about how vast the world is, we live in the Sequatchie Valley, which is surrounded by 2 mountain ranges, and it's about 120 miles long. It's pretty well isolated. We have students here who, when I first became the principal, had never been outside the valley. I suspect there are still students like that here. Our median income is very low. About 77% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunches. So, that kind of gives you an idea of who we are. So in 1998, I just started taking a look at our demographics and thinking, these kids are going to live in a much larger world. There was no Facebook, no Instagram, no Twitter to connect them to anything. Thank goodness, because I think they were missed out a lot. So I just started looking and thinking and talking to our school improvement council and saying, what do you think we can do? What do we need to do? And we all agreed that our children need to be exposed to more diversity. Understand that, not everybody lived in a white community that was small enough that they were cared about. I guarantee you, if you were a kid here during that time and you did something ungodly, somebody would have reported it to your family or your teachers or, some adult before the day was over, and it would have been dealt with in one way or the other. So I started looking around and I found this group called the I Earn Foundation, and they connected high school students with online to study different topics. And I noticed there was a topic about the Holocaust, and that summer they were bringing that topic to Chattanooga, Tennessee. I also knew that if high school students could do it, my 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade students could do the same thing. They could study. They were sharp enough to take part in that. So I asked David Smith, who was the assistant principal, to go to this study group that was happening in Chattanooga. And he came back with the materials. We went to our school improvement council, that's parents, teachers, community members, everybody, and said, we are considering a study of the Holocaust here because we think it would do what we want it to do. Number one, it would introduce us to a diverse culture, because I have my doubts that anybody in Whitwell, Tennessee knew a lot about Jewish people or their culture at that time. Number two, it would show how your just small actions snowball into really big actions and how little it takes to influence people. Number three, we had hopes that it would stop some instances of bullying, make kids stop and think, and teachers stop and think about the things they say and the things they do. So I went to Sandra Roberts, who taught 8th grade social studies, and I said, I have the best idea Now, you ought to run, anybody ought to run, number one, if a principal says that, and number one, if number two, if that principal happens to be me, get your skates on and get the hell out of there. So I said to Sandra Roberts, I'd like for us to start an after-school study about the Holocaust. And kids would have to sign up voluntarily. You won't get paid, and some adult from their family or some adult that they know will have to agree to come with them the first year. And the reason I added that last caveat is because I did not want this super evangelical community to decide that I was promoting a Jewish conversion experience here. Okay. So I also said, now I'll give you comp time and other things if you will do this, and we'll see where it goes. So that year we had, I think, about 30 kids. I don't remember exact numbers. I've been kind of in the hospital the last week, and I don't have the clearest brain. You know, once you've had anesthesia, your brain never works again. So we started with these parents. And as we studied, it was a revelation to everybody. One child in the group came from a Jehovah's Witness family, and her family did not realize that Jehovah's Witnesses were one of the groups that was targeted by the Nazis. So it was a wonderful experience. Our school improvement council got behind it 100%. The parents who came and the children were just 100% behind it. We decided we would do it again the next year, but we would not make an adult come. They could come if they wished, but they would not be required to come. So along about the middle of that next year, one of the students came into my office and said, Miss Hooper, I just don't get 6 million. I can't comprehend 6 million. And I could understand that because at that time the population of Tennessee was 6.2 million. So you're trying to comprehend something that would wipe out everybody in your whole state. She said, can we collect something that will help us to grasp this quantity, this number of people? And I said, you have my permission if, number one, it has to relate to the Holocaust. And number two, it can't just be some junky Coke caps, something like that. You know, you have to. And number three, I have to see the letter. She said, oh, I already have a letter ready. And I said, well, when you get what you're going to collect into that letter, because she had a very good letter, come back. Within a couple of days, she was back and she said, Miss Hooper, we're going to collect paper clips. Now, what would be your first thought? Paper clips are probably the most common thing you ever think about. You know, I see them now all the time. The other day, I was walking in the parking lot of the hospital, and there lay a paper clip by my car. And I said, give me the reason. She said, Miss Hooper, and I love it when kids act like you don't have a brain in the world, because I didn't have a clue why paper clips, and she knew it. And she was going to play her trump card. She said, do you not know that Joseph Baylor, a Norwegian gentleman, is credited with the invention of the paper clips, and that during World War II, Norwegians wore them on their lapels as a symbol of resistance to the Nazis? And of course, I did not know that. So she had her fresh letter ready. We made a list of people we're going to send them out to. We sent them out to all our congressional people, our state officials, any famous person they could think of. And we began to get replies. Now, some of them were really interesting. And I'm going to start with we can't send you a paper clip first. From many major league sports teams, we got letters that say, we appreciate your efforts, but we are unable to send you a paper clip. Now that really kind of got my, as we say in the South, drawers in a wad, because somebody has taken the time to write a letter stick it in an envelope, address it, put a stamp in it. You know they had a paperclip laying there. Why didn't they just stick it in an envelope? We got a similar letter from Senator Al Gore's office at that time. Now, I'm a dedicated Democrat, guys, and if that insults you, I don't really care. But anyway, just a little while after that, I was at a gathering of Democrats, and his state chairman came. People were talking about paperclips, and the state chairman came over to me, of Senator Gore's, and said, "Oh, I'm sure you have a paperclip from Senator Gore." And I said, "Oh, I'm sure we don't, because his office said they were unable to send one. Would you like to see the letter?" And he said, no, thank you. Within a week, Senator Gore paid us a visit and brought several paperclips, okay? But the clips that mean the most to us are clips that came from survivors and survivors' families and told their stories. We have collected, our original goal was to collect 6 million, one for every name that the Nazis recorded when they were very meticulous about recording the names of victims. They recorded their name, how they murdered them, when they murdered them, and how they disposed of the body. All the facts they had about the survivors, they recorded for 6 million people that were Jewish and 5 million other people that were not Jewish. People who just stood up and said, "What you're doing is wrong," or who worked in the underground to try to stop what was going on. Those stories are contained in, Emily will take in a second, she will take the iPad over and show you those letters that we have filed. We have over 30,000 of those letters. We stopped counting paperclips when we reached 30 million. We still receive them, and we still treat them with great care. Several of them we sent out across the country to schools that requested to start their own small collections, or to start their own stories, or to talk about when they showed the movie. And we sent out about 40,000 paperclips that way. We have a butterfly dish in our office here at the school where you can take a paperclip as you leave if you wish to, and we have people who do that all the time. So people always want to know how the movie came to be and how the car got here. Well, I'm going to tell you the bottom line of it all is we have never been in charge of this project. God's hand has been on it from the beginning, whether we want to admit it or not, because you can't tell me that a community like this with no resources out in the middle of nowhere could have a project like this if not. So at any rate, we registered our project with the National Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And Lena Geter, who was a 90-plus-year-old survivor at that time, saw the registration. She called up her friends, Peter and Dagmar Schroeder, who were correspondents for a Washington newspaper. And she simply said, and I love this because I can just see her saying it. It sounds like something I might say if I had known Peter and Dagmar Schroeder. She said, "You are going to Whitwell, Tennessee, and you are going to write about these children and their project, and you are going to ensure that they get 6 million paperclips." Well, they did exactly what she said. They came to Whitwell, Tennessee. They then called their friend Dita Smith, who worked for the Washington Post. And they said to Dita Smith, "You need to go and you need to write about this because the Washington Post gets read more than anything we would ever write." So she did. She came, and she had the same stereotypes that Peter and Dagmar had, that we were, a bunch of redneck, Southern, whatever people think of us stereotypically. She was very surprised. She went back, she wrote her article. When the article came out, Rachel Pinchot was having her morning tea and she started reading the article. She immediately called up her husband, Ari, and she said, Ari, your company, the Johnson Group, has to make a documentary about these students. Get to Tennessee, get the signatures on the line, and make the documentary. So he started calling. Now, we've not been portrayed really nicely in the press in the past. We're a former coal mining community, and we had, the kind of publicity that goes with a coal mining community. And I wasn't the least bit thrilled about having a documentary made. Number one, I figured they would paint us again as a redneck coal mining community. But number two, and probably just as important and maybe more important, I did not want the motive for the project, the object, the goal of the project to be lost in anybody's ego because, ooh, I got to be in a movie. I made a national screen somewhere. The whole object of this project, I think, is summed up in a poem, and you can look it up, by Gertrude Hildreth Hausman, called The Gift of Choice. But it emphasizes the fact that each of us every day makes choices. Do we respect people? No matter, I don't have to like you. Nothing in my Bible, nothing in my teaching tells me I have to like you, but I do have to respect every human being because they were created by God. The other thing is, not only do I have to respect you, but I have to do whatever it takes to help you succeed, because each one of us is unique and each one of us is a product of God's love and creation. And that's the things I did not want to get lost in this. So I told the secretaries, I said, just tell them I'm in the gym or somewhere and I'll go out toward that direction so you don't have to lie. But one morning it happened to be snowing, or I answered the phone for some reason, and it was either Joe Fab or Ari. Right now my brain is a little foggy. I think it was Joe. And they said, well, can we at least come down and talk to you? And I said, well, you can at least come down and talk to me. Send me all the information about your group. So I went online and I started looking them up, and I read everything I could read about them. Learned that their group had been very instrumental in helping the Elizabeth Glazier Pediatric AIDS Foundation, that there's not one nasty, unethical thing said about them on the whole internet, and that's a miracle in itself. I went down and spoke with our superintendent of schools to see if, it would be okay, if the school board would approve it. I spoke with our faculty and our student advisory council, so that by the time Joe and Ari came here, I pretty much made up my mind, but I wanted to, I like to eyeball people. To me, eyes say it all. Doesn't matter if you've got on the COVID mask or not, the eyes tell. So they came in the office, they made their presentation. The school board was going to be that night, and I knew if I called the Board of Ed chairman and said, okay, they were going to approve it. So we came to an understanding that it would be all right for them to start filming. And I only had one caveat, and this is what I said to them. If you make this community or these students look like redneck trailer trash, I'll just simply rip your heart out and eat it for breakfast. So they school board approved it. They started filming. They made, I think, over 180 plus hours of film, as best I remember, which was cut down to 83 minutes. The one thing that I also asked them is I wanted to see as many students as possible in the film, whether or not they were part of the project. One thing I think I forgot to say about Dita Post's article in the Washington Post, when it first came out, we had 150,000 paper clips. And I did not think at all we'd ever get 6 million. To me, the whole purpose of it was to focus on why the 6 million happened, why the 11 million happened, how easy it is. But within a few weeks after her article, we had well over 11 million and counting. I think we had close to 12 million by that time. And we didn't have any place to put them. We had barrels in the basement. You know how principals are. They're usually not the most thoughtful people in the school. And I hadn't given a thought as to what are you going to do with them when you get them. Somebody suggested we melt them, make a monument. I said, oh no, we're not going to. These are not going to be melted, because most of the souls they represented had already been through some kind of fire or some kind of horrible thing. And I just simply could not see that. So one night the Schroeders were in town and our parent advisory committee was here, and we were sitting around the table and we were discussing things. And I said, wouldn't it be just great if we could have an authentic German transport car, and we could put 11 million paper clips in it and transform it from a symbol of hate and intolerance to a symbol of hope and love? And the Schroeders said, that's it. That's what we'll do. Now, I don't know what I was thinking again, because, I mean, you don't just go out on eBay or, Marketplace, whatever, and buy a transport car. But they traveled everywhere till they finally found this car in Robel, Germany. They raised the funds to buy it, convinced the museum there to sell it to them, convinced the German railroad people to transport it to the port of Cuxhaven, convinced the German Navy to bring it to the port of Baltimore, convinced CSX Railroad to transport it to Whitwell, and by the way, or rather to Chattanooga. By the way, it was in transit, as you saw in the movie, on 9/11. So when it got to Chattanooga, B&B Trucking brought it here, or brought it to our old school, and set it up on tracks that had been provided by CSX Railroad, which were from that time period. There's no way that I think I could adequately describe how I felt then and how I feel now. It took me several days to enter the car. You could feel those lives that had been in there. I tried to think. We had survivors who had been here before who told us that they had been in a car like that with 150 people. That car is 9 feet approximately by 22 feet. That would have been the entire number of my 7th and 8th grade students, no, my 8th grade students. 4 classrooms of kids. I tried to visualize how you would ever, no sanitary facilities. We take so much for granted. I was just thinking the other day, just to be able to get a glass of water, to be able to go to the bathroom when you want, to be able to be clean, to have any kind of food. It took me forever to go in there. The gentleman who did the glass work that you'll see behind which the paper clips are stored, when he first came, the floor was absolutely, it was in a bad shape. It had traveled a long way and the floor was cracked and so on and so forth. And he said, Miss Hooper, you're going to have to replace this floor. I said, I don't have any money. And he said, okay. The next day he came back and completely replaced the floor and never said a word, never said, you got to pay me, you got to this, you got to that. He just did it. That's the kind of thing the kind of help when we needed something, it's always been there. whether it was people to speak, people to work, people to plant. Families came together and made it pretty around it. A gentleman in our community donated the fence that surrounds it. A local artist made she made stepping stones of butterflies to put all around it. And they were painted. And as the paint got bad, a stained glass artist said she would at no charge replace and put the color back on the butterflies. And the amazing thing to me about these butterflies is that when you look at them, there are actual butterflies in these colors somewhere on the face of the earth. They're not just something they made up. Emily worked on these stained glass windows. Why don't you turn that around so they can see them? Can you see these stained glass windows?
No, we're looking at the ceiling, so you have to move it down a little bit. That's better. Yes.
Got it.
If you can get a little closer to it too, it makes sense too. You can move it closer to the windows. Yes, it's coming into focus now. Oh, now we can really see it. That's great.
One of them is simply paper clips. The next one is barbed wire with the holders for the barbed wire fencing around a camp with butterflies. The next one is a rail car with a Jewish star. And the other one is iris and a long view of the railroad track going to a camp. So we have those four. Then we have stained glass windows that you can't see from here. We'll show them to you after while. That are our coal mining history and some other historical places here. So, oh gosh, where are we? What do you want to know now?
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the letters? You were going to talk about the letters and
Right.
also I want to include in that discussion the letters that are not so nice.
Oh, yes, we do want. These are all, let's see. The letters that are from survivors start with number 67 and go through number 69. So they would be right here. And they are, well, they just break your heart. We have celebrity letters. We have one of those. They're from people like Tom Bosley, other famous people. And that one's right there. And then there are these. Of the 30,000 letters we have, of the communications we've had with people, these are the only negative comments we've ever had. And I think one of the questions that
So
was,
Emily, if you could show, we're not seeing it. So there you go. Now, thank you.
there it is. Come over here, Emily, and I'll try to open up.
And this, what room are we looking at behind us? Is there a name of this room?
We call this the artifacts room. This is where everything anybody has ever sent to us resides. Now we have hopes. Somebody once said that if Linda Hooper gets a vision, run. My vision, we own 8.5 acres that the city of Whitwell has given us, where we hope in the next 5 years to put our library, our city library, which is in a building now that's falling in, our Miners Museum, our Holocaust Museum, our Veterans Memorial, and our senior citizens all on one plot of land. And we're currently raising funds for that. But just kind of do a little panorama, Emily, of things that are in here. And we'll talk about some of them. Stop right there.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. Thank you.
This is a Torah that was originally written in Pajwa, Lithuania. I got to catch a breath here.
Take your time.
Lithuania during World War II. It was carried to Johannesburg, South Africa. From there, it went to Toronto, Canada. And in Canada, they no longer had a congregation that could use it, if it damaged, touched, all the things that make it not suitable for a synagogue. So the gentleman called and asked me if we would like to have it. And of course, we were thrilled to have this Torah. The ark that it's in was donated to us by the Jewish communities in Chattanooga. Next to it, close the line so you can see a little better. This is a tree of life that was made by Martin Small for his wife on one of their anniversaries. And this tree contains 86 paperclips. Each paperclip represents the life of a relative of either he or his wife that was destroyed during the Holocaust. She and her daughter brought it to us to give to us, the tree of life. Let's go ahead while we're talking. We'll go back to the nasty letters in a minute. We have an authentic jacket that was worn during one of the camps. And if you look closely, you can see that there is a red triangle. If you were not Jewish, you had a triangle of some color. Purple was for Jehovah's Witnesses. The red ones are for political prisoners. And you notice that this jacket has two numbers, one on top of the other. And you can see how one of them's been pulled off, so you can see there's one underneath. So when the first prisoner died, they didn't bother to clean up the jacket. They just simply put another number on. This is beyond my comprehension. One gentleman donated to us the yellow star that he wore during the Holocaust. So let's take a little quick back to the nasty letters. If I'd had time this morning, I would have gotten the one tab that says, here's your paperclip, and it's bent into the shape of a swastika, but I don't see it
Well, let me ask you, you don't have to point it out. We all know that it's all there. Have you seen incidents? And I know we've had COVID and it's been a challenging time for everyone, but perhaps you can tell us how many visitors you had before COVID hit a year.
Oh, before COVID hit, we would have, oh gosh, 30,000 probably somewhere around 40,000 people who would come for guided tours. Now, you can go to the local grocery before COVID, get a key to the car, and the car is wired for sound. That was done by the Sam's Clubs in several states surrounding us, and listen to me talk about the car and the things in the car. So we would have another 5,000-10,000 people who would come that way. This morning when I drove up, there were two ladies from Atlanta who had come here on their way back. They've been visiting in Chattanooga and they were on their way back to Atlanta. One of them was a Montessori teacher from Argentina, and they had just shown up. We have not allowed people since last March to come in here or to come to the car because of COVID. And we are right now we've had a horrible time this summer with starlings. So if you see bird poop when Emily goes out to the car, don't think it's because we're not taking care. It's because we have been really working hard, and we have the guy who says we'll never see another starling again coming Monday. He better be telling me the truth. Then
all right, I want to ask you before that maybe Emily can make her way out to the car. But in the meantime, I have both Cheryl and Jan can maybe unmute yourself, and you three of you can talk about Cheryl and Jan's trip to Whitwell and why you went out. And Jan, I think it would be a fabulous little bit of a transition here to kind of talk about how you saw the movie and from there, and go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everybody. How could you not be inspired by Linda Hooper? And seeing Paperclips, I had the opportunity when I was working at the Jewish Academy, San Diego Jewish Academy, to see the film along with the senior class, and sitting there and just being absolutely amazed by what her students accomplished, and thinking that here I was working at one of the largest Jewish day schools, or the largest Jewish day school in San Diego, and yet we had nothing on our campus to commemorate the Holocaust. And so that really, Paperclips was my inspiration for the Butterfly Project. I went back to the board of the Academy and I said, we need to have something here on our campus that will be not threatening, because we have a campus of, at that time, it was kindergarten through 12th grade. Now it's preschool through 12th grade. We want the kids to remember what happened, but we also want them to have hope that if we treat each other with respect and kindness, that something like this won't happen again to anyone. And the board approved my request. And from there, I remembered a poem that I read about a young man who was in a ghetto, and mentioned that he had never seen a butterfly there. That butterfly was the last one. So it's in a book of poetry and artwork by children in Terezin concentration camp. And I thought about a butterfly representing hope and freedom and the fragility of life, and that would be a perfect symbol for any kind of memorial that we would create on our campus. And that's when I approached Cheryl Ratner Price, as parent and artist. She had done some beautiful, beautiful artwork on our campus. And I approached her about my goal of wanting 1.5 million butterflies, one for each child that was murdered in the Holocaust, to be on our campus, representative on our campus. And if you see the movie that Cheryl made called Not the Last Butterfly, you would see that my first, I guess, thinking about what the butterflies should look like, I wanted all the butterflies to be on our campus. And I had created one out of wire with my calcium pill in the middle, thinking that, we have to do this, obviously 1.5 million with the school budget. How's that going to be something that we can have? And Cheryl basically was very kind and didn't laugh, just said, we can't do it this way, and came up with the idea of having ceramic butterflies, something that would be long lasting and beautiful. And as the project developed, which we'll talk about later, she convinced me that the butterflies needed to be at the places where people were making them, and not all of them coming back to the Jewish Academy. So that's in a nutshell how.
Oh, that's great. So before you answer, Cheryl, Linda, I know that you're you're under the weather. So if you feel that you have to leave and take your leave, it's perfectly fine with us. We all understand. I do want to give Saul the opportunity, if in fact you choose to want to go. Saul, maybe you can unmute yourself and you wanted to say something to Linda, and also explain to the group what the background of the story is.
Linda, it's a privilege to have the ability to speak to you and to thank you for all you've done. I was part of those letters that came from when my mom and dad were alive, because I'm a second generation survivor. Both my parents were victims of the Holocaust, and I actually wrote a book from Bergen-Belsen to Brooklyn, and it gave me the opportunity to send the book to you to have for your library. And with your permission, Linda, I'd like to read the thank you that you sent me, because it was so heartwarming, and so inspirational to me. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. And it says, Dear Dr. Pincheski, no words can adequately express my gratitude to you for donating your book From Bergen-Belsen to Brooklyn to our library. It was an honor and an inspiration to read about the strong women in your family. Their dedication, positive attitude, and love of family warmed my spirit over. Once I started reading, I could not put the book down. Grateful thanks, Linda. And she sent it on the stationery, which she mentioned earlier, from Gertrude Hausman, with the wonderful expression about inspiration from people. And I just thank you. And I also wanted to tell you that I was very upset that you were hospitalized, and Jeff told me about it. And when I was at services yesterday, interesting that you have a Torah there. On Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, we read from the Torah. And part of the opening of the Torah, we have a prayer that we say for those that aren't well. So since I knew yesterday that you were ill, we said what's called a Misha Berach, which is actually hoping for your quick and speedy recovery. And I'm glad to see you today, and God bless you.
Thank you so much. That means a great deal. My husband and I, for the past, since March, have had, I told him we spent more time with the doctors than each other. Please pray for my husband too. He has developed something called acquired hemophilia A. We did get good news yesterday that he is in remission. So we're hopeful he can stay in remission. But
we all hope that for him as well.
Right.
And obviously, Linda, I am so grateful that you're such a hero to be able to come out of the hospital yesterday and to join us today. That is unbelievable. So as they say, the show must go on, but you've taken the show to a much higher level.
no, as my husband says, I was born uber responsible. It's just, I was in the hospital telling them, you're going to have to go get my iPad because I have this thing coming up on Friday. And my daughter-in-law saying that isn't going to happen. But you don't know what hard-headed old women can do. So is there anything else in this room you'd like to see before I
don't know if Emily's out is she out or she's here?
Yes, I'm out at the car now.
Go ahead.
She's
So
Excuse
Emily,
me, can I just ask Linda for her husband's name, so when we do our prayers, I can ask for a prayer for him as well?
Yes, what is it?
what's her husband's name, Linda?
Your husband's name?
My husband is Edward
Edward Hooper?
Hooper, yes.
All right.
Okay, great.
Very good. Thank you. And Emily, are you going to show us the outside?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm on a iPhone, so if you need me to adjust the camera,
That's right.
just
Okay,
just
good.
let me know.
We can see you now. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm outside the car now. This is the entranceway. I have a bit of a knee injury, so if I'm a little wobbly, it's because I have a little bit of a limp. But I'm going to go on inside now, so you can see we have paper clips on both sides enclosed in glass. I'll start on one side and then I can move on to the other side so you can see. You can see, of course, all of the paper clips. It is completely full all the way down to the bottom within the case. On this side, we have a suitcase with luggage tags, which carry on each of the luggage tags in the suitcase. There is apologies to Anne Frank from students in Germany that were sent to us to display in the car. There are also some, here I can open the case here so you can see a little better. You can also see some laying on top of the clips here. I'm just going to put the camera in here so you can see a little bit better. This is one side. All right, and I'm moving to the other side now. This front is wide.
Switch.
Yeah, you don't want. Leave on the.
So one of you is having feedback, so one of
Yeah, I
them,
had to, she brought the iPad outside, so I
Okay.
had the phone so it wouldn't echo. And I'm going to open the case so you can see a little better through the glass here. This is on the opposite side of the car with different artifacts. We have.
so Emily and Linda, many of the audience, including my parents or my mother, traveled in one of these cattle cars. And when I first saw this cattle car, I thought of my mother traveling from Košice, Czechoslovakia, with her family to Auschwitz. And I know that many of the people who are with us also had family who were deported, and many of them perished, most perished, some of them survived. And it is absolutely chilling to be in this car with you, and for our audience to be able to firsthand get a glimpse of a cattle car, which for me is the first time in my life that I have been able to see this.
Right.
So we're thanking you so much for your ability to give us this touch, even though it's virtual. It is most appreciated. But go ahead if you want to tell us anything about the car.
If you have any questions, I can try to answer those. We have, I don't know if you can see through the glass, it's a little hard to reach there. We have some binders open to some different letters within the case here, some
Okay.
different art.
Well, if you're up to
It's been-
taking questions, we're certainly going to let people who are in the audience, if you notice on your toolbar, there's a reaction button. If you click on that reaction button, you'll see there's another button that says raise your hand. If you look at me, I've just clicked my hand and notice that my hand went up in the corner of my screen. So if there are any of you who are interested in asking a question, I would like you to raise your hand. I can call on you. Hopefully I'll be able to see you. There's a lot of people in this group. And if I miss you, then just raise your hand physically and let me know and say something so that the Zoom hears you, and then we'll put your tile in front of me. So is there any questions now? I can't see anybody raising their hand. Anybody raise their hand, or go unmute yourself and ask a question? Okay, Jane, I see your hand. Thank you. Go ahead, unmute yourself and ask.
I know we're all in the same situation here with this COVID pandemic, but is there any guesstimate as to when you may be opening back up for in-person tours, or either groups or individuals?
At the moment, I'm not sure. As far as the tours, I guess it depends on what the school board decides for this upcoming school year. I know that there are some people here today who came individually. I think they may be opening that back up. I don't think there's been a decision made quite yet about when we'll be opening up the tours again.
Okay, are there any other hand raises? Okay, well, we're going to let you guys, we know again how committed you were to being here. Obviously, if you want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay. And Cheryl, you have a hand raised, so go ahead.
Yes, well, several things. Hi, everybody. So really happy to be together again. Thank you, Jeffrey, for organizing this. And Linda and Emily, really powerful to be with you again. Emily, I haven't met you yet, but I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, literally the paperclip and the butterfly as a transition into, you know, us looking and holding these paper clips and thinking about all the work that you had done. And really, we always, it's an honor to mention that we we were born from this concept of reaching out, that we just copied you to reach out and ask people to join in this project. And in addition, I just wanted to call out that we have with us on this Zoom event someone that many of you might know from other worlds, but we have Inga Auerbacher with us, who is a survivor of Terezin. And I wanted to just ask if you could say hello, and really so happy to have you join us.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Welcome.
hello.
Welcome, Inga.
Quite an honor to meet both of you. And Mrs. Hopper, I have met you. We have met on an occasion. It's a wonderful thing that you ladies are doing to remember. I happen to be a child survivor of Terezin, which gave the idea of the butterfly through, what was his name? Pavel Friedman, who wrote that poem. He was somewhat older than I didn't know him. I'm born in Germany, so the relationship between the Czech and the German children was a little bit separate. They were more together, and we had very few German children. I was in Terezin between the age of 7 and 10. When I think about it today, I don't know how I survived, because almost all my friends did not make it.
Inga, would you put your name of your incredible books into the chat so everyone can know your story? And how to
Or maybe you can do it for her.
I don't have the link, but I could put the
You just put the name. I am Star.
I am a star.
I am a star.
And the meaning of that is not that I am a Jewish star. To me, is turning this negative symbol of the yellow star into something positive. To me, every human being is a star. And that book is in 8 languages now, 30 years in print by Penguin.
Very nice. And Inga, my grandfather unfortunately perished in Terezin in 1943.
Sorry.
So what year were you in Terezin?
August 42 till the end of the war. Yeah, 3 years.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to take the moment to reintroduce Cheryl. And Cheryl is the co-founder and co-director of the Butterfly Project, along with Jan Landau. And we're going to turn to another chapter of this program, to something that I also want to disclose and be transparent. I am a big supporter and donor and sponsor of the Butterfly Project. I created this Holocaust group. It's actually Jewish Culture and Holocaust group 2.5 months ago, in part to honor my parents, who were both survivors, and also to provide a digital platform. I have a career-long history of building technology. And so I founded this group because of the platform that Facebook enables all of us to have, to create a new way to educate our youth and non-Jewish people about the Holocaust, about never again, to provide anti-bullying, no hate, and genocide. And I am so pleased to put on these programs, and I curate them and I produce them. It's a labor of love. They're all free. And I hope you'll let people know about them so that more and more people, you can see this program is the largest program we have put on to date. And that's not a surprise, because the word is getting out. We now, in 2.5 months, have 1,600 worldwide members of the group, and that's quite a substantial number. Never that I think we would have that. And I also know that it's becoming worldwide because several people on this Zoom are from Uganda, and the continent of Africa is generating a lot of interest of Jews of color who are connecting to their faith through our group, because in Uganda, there's only 1,200 Jews there. And so they're using this program of all kinds. And it's not only Holocaust related. We have many different programs. And so one of these programs, which is so true to my heart, is that to teach using hope. And I want to present the Butterfly Project. I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl and Jan. We have a really exciting program to you. We're going to debut for the second time Cheryl and Joe Fab. And by the way, there's a connection with Joe Fab. Joe Fab is the person who directed and produced the Paperclip movie, and who also was involved in co-producing the Cheryl's movie, not The Last Butterfly. And so I'm going to leave to Cheryl and Jan and Cheryl's team to take it from here. And we're going to hold questions towards the end, but we definitely have the ability on this segment to open it up for questions if you should have them.
Thank you very much.
Cheryl, you can put your hand down too.
Oh, I don't know if I know how to do that technology.
Just click on the same button. It'll say, drop your hand. There you go.
I'm getting up to speed with all the technology. So without further ado, I am going to ask our program manager, Beth Licha, to please start our program. And let's see, I had notes that I sent everybody. I'm doing the first two slides, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Jan. So we have the screen sharing. Okay, there we go. Let me just get organized here. So here we are, the early days of the Butterfly Project. Jan Landau thinks I didn't laugh at her vitamin pill covered in wire, but I was shocked and didn't see any way to do it. I'm a ceramic artist, and I said, well, I guess we just need to do them. And of course, when you think deeply about ceramics, they go through fire and they come out the other side. And so we got to work. We started making these butterflies by hand with that's my little daughter at the bottom left, cranking out butterflies and, getting them out, asking people to make butterflies and send them to us. And what you can see in the middle at the bottom is it's what's centered on our survival, our wall of Holocaust survivor butterflies at San Diego Jewish Academy. In 2006 is when we co-founded. There's Jen and I putting up that first plaque. And next slide, please. We were really, really humbled and grateful that the survivors in our community rallied around us. At first there was resistance. They felt, why should we participate? We were there. And then we asked them, please, to help us share their stories with the students. Let's combine the butterfly painting with their stories. And many of them painted butterflies for their lost siblings and cousins. And it's a powerful experience to stand in front of that wall and realize, of course, many of the survivors are not with us anymore. And it is an absolute legacy to their courage and resilience. And we're very proud. That's the most important wall that's probably ever been created of butterflies. Next slide, please. Then over to Jan.
So in developing the Butterfly Project, those of us on the board came up with a mission statement. The Butterfly Project is a call to action through education, the arts, and memorial making. We teach social justice through lessons of the Holocaust, educating all about the dangers of hatred and bigotry to cultivate empathy and social responsibility. By painting ceramic butterflies, which are permanently displayed as symbols of resilience and hope, participants remember the 1.5 million children killed in the Holocaust. In this work, the Butterfly Project honors our commitment to the survivors to never forget. Next slide. And as we mentioned before, how impactful the Paperclip movie was to the development of the Butterfly Project. You can see in the lower left-hand corner that we also received 1,000 paper clips from Whitwell, and they are embedded in the root of the tree that you see to the right that's on the campus of the San Diego Jewish Academy. because it was the root of the project. Next. Again, a closer look of the tree on the campus of the Jewish Academy and other displays of butterflies. We have them throughout the campus. And in the picture in the lower left, many of the survivors came out on the day that that tree was dedicated. And unfortunately, many of them in that photo are no longer with us. Next. Why do we paint butterflies? Well, we paint butterflies, most importantly, because they are creating the memorials that are a continuing educational tool about what happened during the Holocaust and what we need to do to make the world a better place for all humankind. You can see in the top left-hand corner that along with the butterfly comes a biography card about a child who was murdered in the Holocaust. The students read that card before they paint and realize that they are painting, they are now the voice for that child, that they are painting in memory of that child. These children didn't have proper burials, places where people could come and think about them and remember them. But these memorials provide this method. What lessons can we learn from the Holocaust? Well, we have learned from survivors. These, to us, have been one of the most important lessons. The necessity of perseverance and resilience. Most European Jews spent years either in hiding or in labor and death concentration camps. How did they survive? Because of the power of hope. We learned from survivors that they were able to survive because they had hope that the next day would bring them their freedom. The dangers of hatred, bigotry, bullying, prejudice, and indifference. It's important to note that bullying started the Holocaust due to prejudice, hatred, and bigotry. Those who did nothing to prevent the mistreatment of people, those who were indifferent or were bystanders, allowed evil behaviors to continue. The profound impact of upstanders for justice. It's thanks to upstanders, people who helped Jewish people, that more lives weren't lost. And the importance of gratitude. The survivors who came to the United States after the war were so grateful for the lives they were able to lead in a country where they could be free to practice their religion and where there were laws that protected them from evil dictators. Next. Well, now more than ever, students of all backgrounds need to be educated about the lessons of the Holocaust due to the rise of anti-Semitic acts worldwide and the lack of Holocaust education in many of our schools. A nationwide survey in 2020 found a shocking lack of knowledge among millennials and Generation Z. 63% of those surveyed did not know that 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. 1 in 10 respondents did not recall of ever hearing the word Holocaust before. Nearly half of those surveyed could not name a single concentration camp. One of the most disturbing finds was that 11% of those studied believe the Jews caused the Holocaust. So the education team of the Butterfly Project developed lessons that we bring to schools. We have literature-based lessons for all grades, K through 12. We have a lesson on anti-bullying for K through 3, elements of the Holocaust and basic Holocaust lesson, the Holocaust why, centering on prejudice and discrimination, bullying. Another one, Through Their Eyes, which actually develops identity with the student who's participating in the project because they read quotes from people their age and what they were experiencing both before and during and after the Holocaust. And finally, a timeline of the Holocaust through photos. So each of the lessons are geared to our audience. We send out a survey ahead of time to the teachers asking what their students already know, what they've already read, and then we decide from the lessons which one would be appropriate for their students. Within those lessons, we have personal stories that the ed team shares about what their parents experienced during the Holocaust. And we share artifacts. We have one member of our team who has her father's uniform that he wore throughout, striped jacket. And we have an actual yellow star that another one of our family friends' fathers wore. And so that really seems to, affect the students greatly. And we have, go ahead, Jeff.
I want to also make sure you include what you've been busy doing under COVID as far as your lessons.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So all of these lessons now can be done virtually. That was a blessing this past year that it gave us time, since we weren't going into classrooms as regularly as we normally did before COVID. We were able to transfer all of our lessons, so that we have been in schools now all over the United States during this time period. Okay, next. I believe this is Cheryl.
Well, it is my honor to have a photograph to introduce our education team, the Butterfly Project's incredible leadership in our education endeavors, led by Jan as chair. To the left, Judy Gottschalk, Sonia Fox-Olbaum, Jan, and Arlene Keys. And these ladies, for years and years, I don't even know how many years it is now, 7, 6, have been spending their retirement going into classrooms. Sometimes there were, I think, 30 classrooms in the Knox Elementary. How many? You were there for a whole month.
Yes.
And sometimes, these classes, they're not nearby. Our teachers are getting up, at 5:30 in the morning to make it for a 7:15 presentation. So the dedication and the creativity, they are all children of survivors. Jan's in-laws are survivors. And so they bridge together, being able to say, this was my mother, this was my father, that there's such an impact that their personal stories bring when they share in the classroom. And so we not only have their strength in reaching into the students, we also do teacher trainings. And we want to create and we do really take a very personal touch with our teachers and with the students, so that they know and they stay with us for year after year, to bring the Butterfly Project and have our education team share their stories. And as Jeff and Jan mentioned, with COVID, we found out, oh, wow, we can be in Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, and no one has to get in their car. So if you have a school or anyone around, educators around you that you think you'd like to connect with us, we can really probably put a program together.
And that's not just schools, that could be institutions,
Right.
both secular and Jewish and non-Jewish as well.
And synagogues, JCCs, Boys and Girls Clubs.
Hadassah chapters, Hillels.
Mhm.
Yes.
Rotary Club. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, next slide, please. I'm very happy that we were gifted this wonderful short clip of Jan and the education team at Montgomery Middle School. So Beth, would you roll that, please?
Our responsibility as children of survivors is to go into the classrooms and teach children the lessons of the Holocaust, which are appropriate for all children. The goal of the Butterfly Project is to create 1.5 million ceramic butterflies and have them be installed on the walls of schools and churches and synagogues and mosques all over the world, to honor those children that lost their lives in the Holocaust and to honor the survivors.
Butterfly Project is a nonprofit organization in San Diego run by all retired educators whose parents were survivors of the Holocaust, and they have extraordinary stories to tell.
We try to talk to kids and let them know that things can get better, that you can have hope that things will still be good for you.
And the only way we can prevent something so horrific as the Holocaust from happening again is for all of us to become upstanders.
If we can connect with 1 or 2 kids, we've done something right, and that's very important to us.
Human greatness does not lie in wealth or power, but in character and goodness. Anne Frank.
Remember the past, act responsibly in the present to create a better future.
Okay, Jan made mention of our biography cards, and this is a good look at one of them that was recently created with the help of Beth. Family members have personal pieces of stories that, you know, even a resource like Yad Vashem might not have. Maybe there's a picture, maybe there's not, but we work together with families of survivors to put together these very powerful educational tools to pair with our butterflies. And you could see how the students are working with them, and the students keep these biography cards, go home and share with their families who they painted their butterfly for. Next slide, please. Oh, and if you are interested, we will put in the chat box in a few minutes how to reach to us so that we can help create a biography card for you. The focus and the respect that these children bring, it's very rare that we have to speak to the children for being disruptive. You could hear a pin drop when the ed team shares their stories, when survivors share their stories, when these lessons are happening. And when, as Jan mentioned, they paint their butterflies, we ask them to say out loud the name of the child that they are painting for, and to share with their neighbor about the child, that the story that they read. So it really becomes a personal connection. Next slide, please. Here you can see members of the education team, Sonia holding her father's uniform, Arlene speaking about not being a bystander. And on the right is our butterfly kits. So it's a lesson in a box. We have a tremendous, fantastic resource.
Oh, we lost you.
And they go out the door, and Beth will explain more about what's in those kits when we go further down the presentation. So next slide, please. And is the miraculous full circle reality that all of a sudden, after I had written to Joe Fab years ago, when we first started the project, and said, hey, we're doing a project, but Paperclips inspired us. And I never heard a thing back from him. And Jan and I were like, well, they don't care about our project. Well, about 8 years later, I got an email from Joe Fab, and he said, oh, thank you very much for always mentioning Paperclips. And by the way, if you ever want to screen Paperclips with your butterflies, happy to do so. And I remember my excitement and with talking with Jan about, okay, I'm going to call him and we're going to get him to help us to make a movie. And I had already started shooting and filming and made a bazillion mistakes. I had 100 hours at least of footage. I'm a mosaic artist, so I was just throwing everything but the kitchen sink into the film, because I thought we never want to drop a story. I want to make sure we remember everything. And he was intrigued. He said, you have the right ingredients. It's education, it's students making a difference, and it's how can you not be moved by the magic of a butterfly? And so he came on board and we began to work together. We, ended up bringing Ella Weisberger, who is in the Red Jacket survivor, who you'll hear more from the film, to San Diego. And then we realized, we thought we were done. We'd have her put a butterfly on the wall and be done. And we realized, no, we need to go to Terrazine with Ella. And I think Inga knows Ella, knew Ella, God of blessed memory, as well. So without further ado, Beth, would you roll we have this is not the full film. This is 25 minutes. This is what we call our educator version. We would be very happy to provide you a link for the full film if you put your email into the chat box. And but this segment, it's a full film as well. So thank you.
But this was later on because we were in the camp, 15,000 children. And I have to say,
Hitler wanted to kill all the Jews in Europe. Not many people believed he would really do this, so no one stopped him. He rounded them all up and loaded them onto trains, and locked them in horrible places called concentration camps. There was no way anyone could escape. The life they used to have was gone. One of these camps was in Czechoslovakia, and it was called Theresienstadt, or Terezín in the Czech language. Terezín was actually a town built inside of a fortress, so it didn't look like the other camps with rows and rows of barracks. And it wasn't a typical concentration camp. It was a ghetto camp. People were sick and starving and forced to do hard labor like slaves. Some prisoners were tortured and killed, but staying there was better than being put on a train to the east, where no one ever came back.
Terezín was unique in that there were many people from the arts and the sciences and universities crowded together with all these children. And it was decided that to keep the children busy and to keep them up to grade level, they would teach the children. And that was forbidden by the Nazis.
In 1943, a woman named Friedel Dicker Brandeis arrived. She decided to bring mostly art supplies in her suitcase. She was a very talented artist and a teacher from the Bauhaus, which everyone knew was the most famous place for artists to train in all of Europe.
People like Friedel used art for good, to give the children hope, to help them express their feelings, to cope with this shock and the fear. The power of art in a dreadful place, in a concentration camp, and to do it against all odds, because it was a powerful form of resistance.
Friedel stuffed almost 5,000 children's drawings and paintings and poetry into 2 suitcases and hid them at Terezin. These artworks were discovered after the war and were published in a book of art and poetry.
I first read this poem, The Butterfly, because a book had been published called I Never Saw Another Butterfly.
The last, the very last. So richly, brightly, dazzlingly yellow. That butterfly was the last one. Butterflies don't live in here, in the ghetto.
And you were in 2nd grade, and now look at you, you're in 5th grade.
This is Jan Landau. She's a teacher at San Diego Jewish Academy. She wanted to find a new way to teach about the Holocaust.
So I thought that there has to be a way that we can have at school something that's not scary, because it's a really scary time in our history, right? A really scary time. My son attended here. His grandparents are Holocaust survivors. We were the largest Jewish day school in San Diego. We had nothing here to remind children of how really lucky they are. I felt it was very important, and I got the go-ahead to pursue my idea. And I had some wires on my desk, so I started forming a butterfly. And I needed someone who could help me, who was an artist. I'm Cheryl. Hi, I'm Jan.
Cheryl kind of froze inside when Jan asked her to help. She never thought she'd want to work on a project about the Holocaust. But Jan convinced her to try.
Think about it. You can handle it. I have to tell you, I'm counting on you. I mean, I just admire your work.
And she pulled out an example of what she created in the shape of a butterfly. She said to me, we'd like to have 1.5 million butterflies. And what do you think? And I looked at this vitamin pill wrapped in wires, and I just had this reaction. We can't do it like that. When Jan and I were sitting in her office, I felt like I wanted to solve a problem for her. But the way Holocaust education was delivered to me as a child in Hebrew school was just awful. We were just not prepared, but we were thrown these black and white reels of footage. And then I remember nobody helping us to process it. How could this happen? I don't want to think about it.
This is Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego. It can hold almost 70,000 people. You would have to fill it more than 21 times to equal the number of children killed in the Holocaust.
You remember a terrible thing in your history, but you have to have hope that things will get better.
So Jan and Cheryl and a handful of volunteers got to work, making butterflies from clay. It didn't take long for them to realize how much there was to do, and that they were going to need a lot more help.
And we got to figure out a way to be more organized.
Right.
The word started to spread beyond the school and their inner circle of volunteers. People they didn't even know were catching the spirit of the project, and soon butterflies were showing up from all over.
And I mean, this is like one of the best parts of our lives is when a box comes in.
One day, they brought the Butterfly Project to the Jewish Community Center. A group of Holocaust survivors were there that day, and something amazing happened.
We were passing by, and you asked if you would be interested to paint butterflies. and in memory of the 1,000,005 children, and hang them on the walls at the academy. But I told you, this is going to go over. When I met you and when you said the purpose of it and the butterflies, it's nothing that kids would look at that they get sad. And this, to me, was my excitement because, you know, if they show pictures, sad pictures, kids run away from it.
The reality is these survivors are getting very old and we're losing them.
Nice meeting you.
Hi, my name is Maria. Nice meeting you.
You all heard of Kristallnacht. That was the beginning of the end of the Jewish people in Europe, in fact. And the synagogues burned from the 9th to the 10th of November at night. It was a terrible time. 30,000 men went to concentration camps.
We had to wear Jewish stars, and this is where the identification came in. We had to sign them. You see a big J, which means for Jews.
We were awakened in order to get ready for the train. No one knew where we were going. But when we saw the cattle cars, we realized we are being shipped to a concentration camp.
I never forget the day when I met Dr. Mengele. They called him the angel of death. He was no angel, but he pointed my mom to the left, my sister to the right, and he grabbed me and looked at me and he said, "You're gonna see your mother very soon."
From August of 1943 till September of 1944, I was in Blagin for 1 year. And from that time, from September to December, I was in Birkenau.
So when we arrived in Birkenau, I asked the first inmate, "When will I see my mother?" And she pointed at the chimney, and fire was coming out of the chimney. And she said to me very coldly, "Your mother is burning there. You better talk about her in past tense."
So we are in Auschwitz in Birkenau, in this horrible, horrible place, and somebody's calling out my name, Roizi. My Jewish name is Roizi. And I look and I said, "Who is this?" He says, "Don't you recognize me? I'm your father." And we talked and he said, "Stay together, because when you're together, you have a much better chance of survival." And then also he said, "Stay alive so you can tell the world what they're doing to us."
You know, we're honoring those every single child, and we're trying to get 1.5 million.
The Butterfly Project inspires people of all faiths and backgrounds to have the courage to look at the Holocaust through the eyes, hearts, and hands of activism.
You kids should know what happened, so if something happened again in this magnitude, you should speak up.
Listening to the speakers, I've learned that if I don't do anything, then nothing will change.
Living through the past is hard, but it just shows that we have to push forward. And just seeing him smile and have like this bright eyes, it encouraged me a lot.
Talking about one person standing up and influencing someone else to stand up, it reminds me of what Rose was saying. She has hope for the future. She has hope that students like us will take what we've learned and do something with it.
It's not just
That's
a
the
Jewish
point.
project.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing really is to get it out into schools that are not Jewish.
Pass out a card that you need to take a minute. This is the most serious part of the day. You're going to read the story about a child that did not live through the Holocaust, that was killed. In a short amount of time, 1.5 million children were murdered. Every single butterfly counts, and it represents a life.
Can you tell me more about how we can make an installation at our school?
This is what we needed and you were worried. It's coming in.
And one word that connects everyone who has worked on this project is compassion. Compassion for all the people that suffered during this tragic time in our world's history, and compassion for those that are still suffering in many parts of the world today. Compassion in the heart of everyone here. And our hope is that when you leave this Children's Memorial, you might be inspired to learn more, to do more, and to be a voice for those who cannot speak any longer.
I definitely saw the joy that it brought to my students when they were able to say, I'm creating this butterfly in remembrance of a child who did not have the opportunity to live. I'm living for him, or I'm living for her.
We all start out being bystanders when we see someone in trouble. Then we have to make a decision. Do we remain a bystander, or do we try and help someone? Yes.
You try and help someone, you guys.
Thank you.
He picked me up, and what they always said, all Jews have money. Give me the money, I'll take you to the Nazis. I said, I'm Polish and I don't have any money. And here comes my physical angel. The lady, the farmer, came out from the house to give me something to eat, and she saw him pulling me. So she came, I didn't know she knows him. So she came and she met him, and she with her finger was screaming at his face. You call yourself a good Christian? I see you in church every Sunday. Leave the child alone. And he did, and here I am.
I think it is very exciting and very meaningful for each of the children and the survivors who work with them today at the Museum of Tolerance to know that their butterflies are going to be displayed in Poland.
It was important to me, and I thought that it would be nice that on our building, the butterflies symbolize the children and grandchildren of the survivors. That we're able to do this down the road from Auschwitz, I think there's an important message there.
The people attending the festival put up almost 4,000 butterflies in just 3 days.
And all of this happened right on the border between Poland and Germany.
Art is so powerful as a means of expression, as a means of connecting people, of responding to the world.
The Butterfly Project visited a place near the Gaza Strip in Israel where the kids were always afraid. A little girl who had stopped speaking started smiling and talking again after painting a butterfly.
Umanit? It's an artist? I think you're an artist.
It's a dream of a teacher to affect your students' lives and hope that the world will become a better place. Maybe with these kids that are participating in this project.
This is continuing the work of Friedel and the others who work with the children at Terezin.
I just found out from your teacher that you are 11 years old, most of you. And I was 11 years old when I was taken to the concentration camp. I have with me the Jewish star, the original one that we had to buy. It was very hard for me to wear it right away. because all my friends from school, they were avoiding me. They weren't talking to me. It was hard. My friend Ruthie Schechter, born August 24th, 1930, slept next to me. And she was the most talented little girl. So many of my friends, they're not with us. 1.5 million Jewish children were murdered for that because they had the star. They were Jewish. This was the only reason that they were murdered. I feel it's important for children to know how important it was for freedom to let us know that we are not only numbers, that we have a name, that we were born. And her teaching through art became now lately very well known because of our pictures, children pictures, that she was saving in a suitcase.
Prosíme pozor. Osobní vlak číslo 9865 ze směru Kladno-Ostrovec, který dále pokračuje ve směru Praha-Masarykovo nádraží.
They found my mother's goat dead and they took it. She took us one day to the windows and said, "It's a beautiful day. Look out. The sun is up. But what is important? What is behind those mountains? And behind those mountains is hope." If not Friedel Brandeis, probably the Nazis would throw away our children paintings. The poems, the paintings, and the children's opera are only things that are still here to remember the children of Purity. What is so special about Friedel is that she didn't have her own children. We were able to be so close. I have Friedel living in me. All those teachers that they helped us to survive.
What the Butterfly Project does, it gives a voice back to the anonymous child. That is our duty, to remember not the number that was lost, but the human beings that were lost.
But it's really hard, really hard.
A.
A. Okay.
25893.
Meeting so many different people in the churches and the schools, and the sensitivity that I've seen from all of the participants is just tremendous. And you're going to get, and this is the actual certificate that you're going to get. And take a look at the names so you can, at the end, we'll go around and read the names out loud.
I think that what's happening for the students is that they're reframing a tragedy into an opportunity to make the world a better place.
You can tell me what that first word is. Yeah.
She has hope for the future. She has hope that students like us will take what we've learned and do something with it. And I think that it's a responsibility for us as students and, you know, the future generation to do that.
All that what I see and I hear about the butterflies and about what it means to children to be part of it. This is a lesson for life.
Thank you, Beth, and everyone for your wonderful messages during the film here. And now we can go back to gallery view for a little bit to answer any questions you might have. Any comments?
Okay. And again, if you could click your button on the reaction area of the toolbar, and as you'll see, I'm going to click your raise hand, so you'll see my hand come up. Anybody who would like to ask questions, please raise your hands. And I just want to, or if you want to voice in, anybody want to ask a question? Unmute yourself and just.
Right now, we still have the screen shared. Beth, do you want to undo that so we could see each other? Thank you. Great.
Very good. And I want to acknowledge that Samuel, if you can unmute yourself, Samuel, and tell us, Samuel, why you're here and where are you from? You have to unmute yourself, Samuel. There you go. Go ahead. Tell us why you're here and where are you from?
It's a great pleasure to meet you all. I'm Samuel, the founder of Hopes Uganda Kids Family, a charity organization that is, advancing the children's right down here in Uganda, and protecting them through shelter, giving them food, and providing healthy care. We also
how many Jews are in you? How many Jews are in your community and in Uganda?
Where we are right now, we have in the area where I am, in the district where I am right now, we're having around like 5,000 of them. Yeah, 5,000, because when you count, we have around like here where I am, we have around like 10 churches, 10 synagogues.
How many Jews are in your area?
In my area right now here, they are just like about 400, 900, something like that.
Okay. All right. I want to give. Yeah. I'm going to give back the program to Cheryl and Jan. I think we have a few more slides that we want to cover before we let you go. And I don't see anybody interested in asking some questions, so we'll continue.
Okay, next slide then, please. I wanted to give Beth an opportunity as our program manager to share a little bit about the exciting cycle of, from start to finish, when a teacher reaches to us to get butterflies from us. You can also make them yourself, but here is what we have.
Yeah, so on the right here, you see a picture of a butterfly kit. This is a classroom kit. They come in quantities of 36 butterflies with everything that they need to be able to paint them, and 36 unique butterfly or biography cards. We currently have 8 sets of biography cards, 36 cards each, and we're about halfway through our 9th set. in my opinion, after the butterflies, or maybe even before the butterflies, the biography cards are really the essential component of the kit. Each student takes their own biography card home with them, and it makes everything so much more relevant and real to each of those students when they get to read the biography of a child who did not survive. And on the left here, you'll see we have just 4 pictures of children that did not survive, but we have hundreds of children in our library, and there are thousands upon thousands more that we would like to add. But when a teacher contacts us to order a butterfly kit, they order one, they order many. Sometimes when a whole school is doing it, instead they'll order by hundreds. We also do quantities of hundreds. And thankfully we have had whole school districts that have ordered from us, and whole communities where they'll order thousands of butterflies. But every single butterfly counts just as much. So this is just an example of what goes out. And then here, oh, Cheryl, this is you. And
wait, can you go back one more slide for 1 minute longer?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I just want to mention, of course, the horrible reality that 1.5 million Jewish and non-Jewish children were killed in the Holocaust. And we have learned that about 750,000 of those names have been recorded, and maybe a birth date, a death date, where they were killed. But the story is what we know makes the difference with the students. And so anytime we speak with a survivor or a generation of theirs, we say, what do you know? What maybe you don't have a picture, but what kind of business, what town were they in? And that is where we start to craft and create a more personal story about a real human being. And we're doing our very best to, I think Beth mentioned, we think we have one of the largest collections of children's biography cards that have photographs on them for that extra immediate connection that a student can make. So next slide, please. We'll go through these quickly, but this is the Butterfly Project's visit to Paperclips. I don't think Linda is on the call anymore, but she has seen these. And here's the butterflies that sparked Jan's imagination, in addition to the movie itself. Next slide. We attended a One Clip at a Time workshop, which is their summer program for teachers. And here we are in front of the railroad car and with Linda inside the school. Next slide. And again, what you saw earlier. Powerful. Next slide, please. And here's a close-up of a child looking at those paper clips at the San Diego Jewish Academy. So it's a tremendous full circle for us. And we're never going to stop. Next slide. Here's teachers in the workshop. And next slide. And here you can see from the simple to the complex, installations of butterflies, survivors in front of the installations, Catholic school on the lower left. Next slide. So much has continued to happen since we made the film. The upper left is at the World War II Museum in New Orleans. They did an installation with a school district. Lower left is again another Catholic school. Lower right is Pittsburgh Holocaust Museum, has an artist there, Alex Paul, who made these remarkable butterflies. So you can see you can also make the butterflies locally. Next slide. Now this is where, oh, back, thank you. You saw the Charlotte, North Carolina speakers, originators of who created this monumental sculpture. They have, I think it is 8,500 butterflies on their installation. I actually visited it a few weeks ago, seeing it for the second time. And on the left side is a local San Diego installation with 10 schools, 2,000 butterflies. And you get a sense of, you know, what a community might do to come together to make a monumental installation. And, you know, they do their fundraising, and what also can happen is the Butterfly Project can be hired to do the design work. And we're thrilled when that happens. You'll see in the next couple of slides what that might look like. Next slide. We have here on the, here it is. This is, I don't know if Debbie Moline is still on the call, maybe if she, on the Zoom, if she can unmute herself for a moment. This was a really,
I'm here.
There she is. She's a visionary educational champion teaching the Holocaust at the Mirage JCC in Irvine, California. And Debbie began working with everyone in her community. And maybe you want to say a few words about this installation and working with us as designers for you, how that all was.
Sure. We started 2 years ago. We showed the movie as part of our Yom HaShoah commemoration, and we got a great response. And because of COVID, we were delayed a year in putting the butterflies up on the wall in our Holocaust Memorial Garden. But during that time of COVID, when we had a little bit more time to think about it, we decided we wanted to do something special. And fortunately, we had a donor here at the Mirage JCC who wanted to do something special. So we made this memorial, and Cheryl came in with her creativity and her partners and her unbelievable talent, and we designed this, and it's just become such a focus of our JCC. Everybody who walks through the building, especially those who come out into the garden, just are mesmerized by this. And we have at the bottom the plaque, not only about the Butterfly Project, but we have the plaque with the poem, The Last Butterfly. And it's just a memorial that speaks to everyone. And we plan to continue it. It's going to be a dynamic installation. We have a whole wall that we can fill, and the wall, the continuation of that wall, goes right out over our preschool playgrounds. So the children in our preschool are playing and laughing and making noise and just symbolizing exactly what those butterflies are supposed to symbolize, and that is a hopeful future.
Thank you. It has been really, really incredibly meaningful to work together with you and your team, and to see what's possible, to be right next to a more classic Shoah memorial. A children's Holocaust memorial was born, and it's, like you said, right next to your children's playground. So it's their dedication for Yom HaShoah was just absolutely the most meaningful, coming out of, you know, still in the middle of COVID, really, but you pulled it off so beautifully, and thank you. Okay, next slide, please. And then here you see on the left, that's at a Jewish day school in Los Angeles. One of our early installations. It's actually one of our local San Diego survivors, Fanny Krasner-Leibovitz, with her family that lives up there. The right hand are students that led the creation of this memorial in San Salvador, El Salvador. And in the middle is Seacrest Village here in San Diego installation. The next slide. Guatemala Holocaust Museum, National World War II Museum. Next slide. Other locations. We currently have in Germany more than 30 schools that are participating. We have a tremendous, amazing volunteer who is a journalist over there who's really spreading the word about our work. Next slide. In Mexico City. And then Poland, you saw in the movie. Israel. Bottom right is me and Joe Fab in Latvia, which was an amazing trip with the US ambassador. So we were very honored to have the film translated into Latvian and be the Americans teaching the Latvians about their own history, which is a very surreal experience, but they're trying. Next slide. And I want to return the conversation back to Jeffrey. And
I want to ask Beth to unmute. And this card means a lot to me, and this whole program both the Paperclips and the Butterfly program, as I told you, has a lot of heartfelt, deep meaning to me. About right before COVID, I came to, with my wife, Myra, we retired from Minneapolis to San Diego, and we were introduced to Jan and Sam at a second generation show, a physical event called Mama's Kitchen. And from there, I met Cheryl, and Cheryl started to tell me about their biographical database. And I had my mother, family was deported from Košice, Czechoslovakia, to Auschwitz. On day one, Magda, pictured here, but there's a story behind this, was asked to go left. Her mother wouldn't let go of her hand, and they were both gassed on day one of arrival at Auschwitz. I filled out the card of what I knew of Magda, pictureless, and not with the depth, because my mother and father never spoke to us about their war experiences. I often say their silence was deafening. And I didn't want anything to do with the Holocaust before I met Jan and Sam and the generations of the Shoah group here in San Diego. They have changed my life and put my life on a different course. And I do get emotional, so sorry. But Cheryl, or I'm sorry, so I was on a call for one of our planning meetings for an event that we were doing. And Beth asked me, why do I have 2 Magda cards? And I said, what are you talking 2 Magda cards? I remember filling out a Magda card because Cheryl told me to 2 years ago. And Beth said, no, we have 2. And for the very first time, and I supported the group by sponsoring Magda's card at that time and the build of it. And it was my donation to the group. And Beth opened up, shared Zoom, and she showed me this card. I had never seen a picture of Magda before seeing this card. And I have never read some of the information that's in this card because my knowledge has been incomplete because I didn't know any of my mom's history because my mom really never discussed it other than very high level stuff. I know my grandfather's name was Aaron. We've named our son, his middle name is Aaron. But it was amazing. And I'll let Beth tell you the back end of the story.
Okay, so I've been with the Butterfly Project since last March, and I mean, we went out on pandemic leave 2.5 weeks after I started my job, and so there was a period of time when I was still very new, and we weren't really doing active classroom stuff. So I felt like I needed to be doing something to keep myself busy and relevant and keep my job. And I asked Cheryl, I said, I think I'd like to research biography cards. Would that be okay with you? And she said, sure. And so I just went online and I tried in every way I could to find information about children who had been killed during the Holocaust. And Yad Vashem, the International Holocaust Museum that is in Jerusalem, was a resource for me. And I was looking through exhibits, trying to find a picture. If I found a picture of a child, then I would do everything I could to research information about them. And through one of those searches, I came across this picture of Magda, and I wrote this card up. And it was at least 6 months later that we decided that we needed a form that people could fill out to give me information about their family members, and I could write biography cards. And that form was given to Jeffrey because he was active with the Butterfly Project. And like he said, he completed the card, and what was confusing was Magda was actually the example I had used on the form. At the very top of the form, I put a picture of her card so that people knew what we were writing. And I guess he didn't notice the picture. He filled out the card with information about Magda. And the next time we spoke, I said, I'm so confused. Is this an exercise? Were you just filling out the form with information that you were reading from the card? I don't understand. And that's when he told me he didn't see Magda's card there. He didn't know that we had written a card for her. And he was able to give me some information about the family that I didn't know from the research that I had found. But for me, Magda and every child that I've written a card for, and every child that we have a biography card for, they live on in these cards. They're not just a number, they're a name and a face and a story. And for so many children, there was no one left behind to tell their story. There's no way for them to live on. And so by being able to create biography cards for them, every single student, every single participant in the Butterfly Project who reads their card and creates a butterfly for them, they really do, those children then live on, and their lives amounted to more than what they could accomplish in the short time that they had, because now they're standing as a symbol of, their butterfly is a symbol of hope, but their life is an example of the danger of hatred and bigotry. And it is so much more profound for students to learn from these cards. And so we're really hoping that any of you who have a family member who passed away, who was killed in the Holocaust prior to the age of 21 or 21 and younger, that you would submit information and that together we can write more biography cards. I think Cheryl or Margot is going to put the link in the chat for the link to the biography card submission. And on that card is my contact information, and I will work with you directly in creating that card.
So I know we're going a little long, but I got to just add 2 more points to this. We talk about legacy and we talk about our parents. I didn't know about my parents' background. And if you notice, it says on April 27, 1944, remaining Jews of Košice were rounded up into 2 brick house factories and then deported to Auschwitz. I have found out that that factory is Gupa, G-U-P-A. That was my grandfather's factory. And so my family, my mom and her 3 sisters, mother and father, were deported from the factory that the Nazis seized in January of 1944. Since I have gotten this card from Beth, I have shared this with my first cousins, my mother's 2 older sisters. One of them has passed, but I still have one living in Buenos Aires. She's 95, and she has seen, and my first cousins, their sons, has seen this card now for the first time. So if that's not powerful, and thank you very much.
Oh, incredible. We are, as Linda said with Paperclips, Jan and I always say that this is so much bigger. The Butterfly Project is so much bigger than us. We are absolutely guided by the mysterious beyond, by God. And I wanted to also just say that, miracles are happening all the time. We never dreamed we would get this far. And we really do count on the support we get from everyone that possibly can to support our work. I wanted to mention Margot Dinnerman is also on our call. She's our development director. We're a very small, scrappy team of staff. And Margot also is very busy researching and finding biography cards and sending them to Beth and me. And we are on this as far as this research. We'd love your help. And then Margot, can you unmute yourself? And Jeffrey, would you take us through this?
I just wanted to make a statement. As I told you, I'm a huge sponsor of this organization. I want to also let you know that Cheryl is not paid for the work that she does. It's all dedicated work.
Neither is Jan.
And neither is Jan. And really no one is, other than some staff. But what we're really asking, the history of the Butterfly Project really asked teachers to spend money on these kits or to find ways of having a bake sale to accumulate money to get those kits that you saw earlier in this presentation. But it is seeming to be so backwards to think that we, as the Jewish community, the diaspora, that wants to stop anti-Semitism, that we cannot step up and be participating in the education of our youth on a global level, whether they're Jewish or not. And so these programs are designed to allow you to purchase kits that educate children. And I asked this group of really dedicated people to include this slide. They didn't want to, but I insisted that we should put this in front of the people who are in attendance here today, and it is recorded. So I'm going to verbalize that there are groups of 180, 360, 540, 720, 10,080, and 1,800 that are sponsor dollar groups that will buy education across this country. And I hope that you will take it into your hearts to understand that we cannot teach Holocaust education and put it on the back of teachers who are already buying pencils and pens and paper that they shouldn't be buying either. So I'm going to get off my soapbox. I don't think we have to spend any more time on this slide. I really want to give the opportunity now to open it up. If anybody has any questions for any of you, that they go ahead and they again raise their hand through the participant, or just unmute yourself, raise your hand, talk, and we will see you on screen. There's still 20 people with us, so I know you're out there. Unfortunately, my technology right now can't see you if you're raising your hand, so you need to raise your hand and talk. Anybody? Inga?
Yeah, I just want to, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to add something, that the German children were in Terezin, were not privy to those classes. So it's not all the children in Terezin had a Friedel Brandeis or something.
Yes, very few.
Very important, because I didn't have just about nothing in 3 years, nothing.
Thank
So
you.
I would like to add that. That's very important.
That's important that we really bring that in as thank you. We will.
Is there anybody else who would like to add something? Well, I want to then conclude this program by thanking all of you for your attention. We have debuted now for the second time, not the last butterfly. So thank you, Cheryl, for enabling that. Again, if you are interested in connecting with the Butterfly Project, Cheryl has put their information into, I'm going to get to you, Samuel, just let me finish up. And I want to have you put your information in chat. They have staff collecting that information. They'll be out to you and talking to you on how to get you a link and password to see the movie, and as well as any information you would have. So Samuel, if you'd like to mute yourself and ask your question. Go ahead.
I'm just concerned about can you hold the teachings on Zoom so that we can set up a Zoom with the children around here?
Yes, we will. We will work. We'll email you with how to get that set up.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great idea. Anybody else have a question? Okay, so organically, we're coming to the end of the program.
Wait, I have one more question. Because we didn't have enough time at the beginning of the call, I wanted to know, where is Abe from? And let's see, I think everyone else had a chance to introduce themselves. Abe, where are you joining us from?
Fremont, California.
Okay.
I'm a child of Holocaust survivors. I was born in Feldafing, Germany, after my parents were liberated, and met and married there. And I'm quite interested in what you're doing, and thank you for what you're doing. I've been speaking to high school kids, middle school kids, supported by Facing History and Ourselves, which is
we work with them. Wonderful.
Yeah. So
Love to stay
I
in
am.
touch with you. Will you provide your email so we can, I'd like to connect you with someone in Germany too, if you would be interested in that.
Well, that's interesting because I just talked to our son yesterday, and he said, Abe, do you want to go to Germany in October and see Feldafing again, which is the DP camp? So you want me to, oh, you're giving me your, oh, that's Nobi.
Can you type, if you wouldn't mind, into the chat box, and then we'll stay in touch with you. That would be really
All right,
great.
thank you.
Thank you. And then I guess, Barb and Karen and Gail, I think Barb, you're in West Virginia, right? I think.
Well, let me do this. I'm going to unmute everyone. So
Yeah, I just want to say it's amazing what Zoom can do to bring us together, right?
Okay, hold on a second. Let me see how I do this.
And Margot, you didn't get a chance to say hello to everybody. Would you like to?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I joined the Butterfly Project with Cheryl in 2019. Just to talk a little bit personally about the Butterfly Project and the impact that the Butterfly Project has on students. My son was at the Jewish Academy with Cheryl's daughter, and Jan Landau was his teacher. And he's now at Brandeis University as a Jewish Studies major. And to talk about the impact and the long-lasting legacy of the Butterfly Project, we have young students who are in school who learn originally about the Butterfly Project up through high school, and they carry this project to them through high school and to their colleges. And we have several students who are part of Hillel. As part of our legacy, they bring the Butterfly Project to Hillel and to college students so they are aware of the Holocaust and they raise awareness about bigotry and hatred. So this is an impactful program that we offer to students. We cannot do this without the support and help of donors like you who support our project. And we greatly appreciate your attending this program today. Please feel free to reach out to us. We just want to impress upon you that we've touched over 300,000 students with this program, but not just the students. We've also touched their family members and friends because they talk about the project.
And Margo, maybe you would put into chat your URL.
Sure, I actually have put in.
Okay. And maybe I can ask Karen Perna if you can unmute yourself and you can tell us where you're from and any history that's relevant. Same thing with Karen Levinson. And I'm looking through Barb Lewine. And I see Sam. No, Sam is Jan. Sorry. Okay. And are you able to unmute yourself? If we don't hear from you, then we are going to pass. So I want to bring this, we're obviously almost a half hour over time here, but I think this was such a compelling program. I'm so happy that you all stayed with us over time. And again, thank you for your support. And I will be in touch with programming. I want to also let you know that we'll be taking a programming hiatus for the month of July and August. So don't be alarmed. You will see no programming coming from the group. We will pick it up after the high holidays. So thank you very much. Bye now.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, everyone, for being with us, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Jeffrey.